Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope all is well with everybody. Big shout outs to everybody in the social media world. Hope all is well. Greatly appreciate you all joining us tonight. Tonight, we are going to be talking about some serious things dealing with men. All right. I want to give a special shout out to Words of Wisdom Counseling Services for bringing this phenomenal panel of men together to have this discussion about men. All right. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Dante Kendall. I'm a licensed professional counselor, certified integrative mental health professional. I've been in the mental health field for a little over 20 years. I currently own my own private practice located in Virginia Beach. Outside of that, I am also a husband of 20 years. I have three phenomenal children, come from the athletic background, and I look forward to answering these questions and building with these brothers tonight.
Hello, I'm Patrick Sims. I am a certified mental health coach, counselor, and consultant. I've done 13 years in the Air Force. I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan during the wartime. I have my military background, as you can see. I've also been ordained in 2015, and I'm here to bring a word to wisdom to the men out there.
My name is Robert. I'm an activist and a researcher that focuses on dismantling the prison industrial complex. I currently work as a communications coordinator for a prison museum here in New York, where I focus on utilizing oral histories and historical analysts to tell the stories of incarceration in New York. My work focuses on sharing stories of incarceration and reform, past and present, and to bring people together to imagine and create a more just society.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Dre Lavelle, former naval veteran, father, husband, uh, beautiful grandchildren. And one of the things that I love really helping with men and women that, dealing with their marriages, dealing with youth, involved in the youth ministry, as well as the men's ministry here in the Virginia area. I'm also a mentor and a trader, and I help others to learn how to invest in the financial markets or ways that they can become educated in the financial markets. How's everybody doing this?
Doing great, man. Super excited about getting up here, having a great time with you fellas. A lot of people they got a ton of questions about, men and how we communicate, how well and how not so well that we communicate. So I'm looking forward to answering these questions with everybody. All right. Everybody ready?
Absolutely. I'm excited.
All right, cool. So, all right, fellas. So we're gonna just get right into it. So, the first question is, when did you first realize that being a man came with emotional expectations when you were never taught how to handle? So, for me, fellas, I looked at this question from a ton of different angles, but one of the things that really stuck out to me, I'm gonna go ahead and answer it first. One of the things that stuck out to me, fellas, was when I turned 18 and legally became a man by age. I noticed that folks really wasn't checking up on me no more. You know what I mean? And then as I got to age 19, I realized the folks that used to check up on me, it just started to get smaller and smaller. And that's when I realized, I said, okay, well, you know, when I turned 18 and, became a man by age, the expectation was for me to get out here and make sure I was able to, stand on my own 2 feet, you know, both, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially, but for me, I was blessed to play college football. So I really didn't have a lot of money, you know what I mean? But, I was able to, spend the next 4 years in college, but that really opened up my eyes to how males at that age are perceived when you turn 18. The thing was, when you turn 18, the expectation is you are supposed to be able to handle yourself, conduct yourself like a man. Your discipline has to be elevated. And these are some of the things that I really wasn't prepared for. All right. So I'm gonna do my best not to be long-winded with that question. And I'm gonna, pass that question to the rest of the panel in no particular order.
Yeah, I can take it from there. When I discovered that expectations of emotions that I wasn't ever taught, it was I can say it was about two events. There's one event is when I got into a actual physical fight. I was 17 years old, and my in the neighborhood, kids being kids and acting rowdy. I got into a fight. The police were called, and the police officer said that my father said, "Hey, he's a minor, and these adult kids was fighting him." And he's like, "Well, it doesn't matter. He's 17. He'll be tried as an adult anyway." I was like, "Jeez." Like, I didn't even get a chance to be old enough to smoke before, to be tried as an adult in an incident where it wasn't even my fault. And the second time I noticed that is I was working at a grocery store, and it's this man. He was like 37 years old, and he's a friend of mine or whatever. He's working, and he came in. He was stressed out about his daughter. His daughter was talking about running away from school. His daughter was 16. I was 22. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm stressed out because she's talking about running away. She's stressed out at school and stuff." And I was like, "Hey, man, just calm down. She's your daughter. If you just take a second and listen to the emotions that she's feeling, opposed to what she's actually saying, maybe you can get your message off to her." And he's like, "I knew I was going to calm down when I came into work and talk to you about what I was dealing with." And that taught me that it's no certain age where you hit that point and all of a sudden you're a man. He was 36 years old, asking advice from a 22-year-old that's not married, never had kids before, and it actually emotionally calmed him down just hearing some words of wisdom. So those are the two times that made me notice that, wow, being a man and controlling your emotions and having emotions or whatever is not necessarily something that's taught at a certain age. It's because there's 57-year-old people that's still acting like 17-year-olds.
Facts.
But yeah.
No lies told right there, Mr. Patrick, man. Really appreciate that. I'm going to pass that question on to the remainder of the panel.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead first. I think for me, I don't know if it was so much that I wasn't properly prepared for it, because fortunately I had the privilege of having both of my parents involved in life. I grew up with both of my parents in a household, married for 40 years. But I think it was so much of me personally not being prepared. One of those things was when I first had my first child. I can honestly say that I played in the sand when it came to women, females at the time, and I did not seriously consider, hey, what it would be like if I have a child with a woman and I wasn't married to her. I didn't have a strong relationship with her, and the emotional connection that we had, it just really wasn't what it should have been for somebody that's having a child with someone. And it led me down an incredible road that I can often imagine the road that it led my child's mother down. But my level of maturity was nowhere near what it needed to be. And it caused a lot of strife, financial, it was hardships, but it forced me to grow up fast. Because what I knew was at the age of 22 is when I had my child, I had to get a job that was a proper job. I had to get myself on track. I had to make sure that my responsibility was taken care of. I make sure that the bills was taken care of. And though we didn't, me and my child's mother, we no longer continued the relationship, but we was able throughout the years to maintain a relationship. Now my daughter's 27 years old right now, actually living here with me. But it was that was when I first understood that I have to be a real man. And I really didn't understand fully what that meant. I heard about it. My father taught me. I saw what it looked like. So I had to learn how to draw on the experiences of what he did. And my father always said something like this: "Son, you never know what it is to be me until you walk inside my shoes." And me and my father used to butt heads when I was young. Used to just bang heads. I mean, but no, today, moving forward, my father's my best friend. And I'm grateful that I've had him in my life, and I was able to, drawing experiences that I was shown. But emotionally, I wasn't prepared. Mentally, I may have been guided. Oh no, no, emotionally I would. Mentally, I was guided, but emotionally and mentally, as a 22-year-old, my brain wasn't developed enough. I was still so immature that I really didn't even know myself at that age. And of course, many of us, we all grown men here, right? We think at 21 years old, we know each other. I know who I am. I'm 50 years old now. I can honestly say that no, I did not know who I was. I was becoming who I needed to become at that phase. I was no longer a child, a student in high school. I was in adulthood, and that forced me to really grow up. And it was an interesting road. But yeah, that's not to go any further, but yeah, that's what it was for me. How about
Nah,
you, Pat? How about you, Rob?
For me, I think it was probably the first time I had to be strong for someone else. I never knew what it meant because no one ever showed me to look for that strength within inside me. So I was kind of just doing what I wanted to do at a young age and living real loose, and that caused me a lot of problems. And to be strong for someone else, I always see that as I committed a crime at a very young age, and it cost me to lose a large portion of my life. But if I'd have been strong and focused mentally and emotionally, I wouldn't have had those problems. But I just allowed myself to not be strong for other people, like my family or the community, my neighbors. I just let myself be something other. And that other caused me to lose a lot. So that forced me to emotionally become focused as a young man and showed me how to be a man because I didn't know at the time. I was around a lot of men in my family, but I didn't really pay attention to the things they were teaching me or try to emulate them. I just did what I wanted to do, and that cost me a lot. And at that point, I learned what it meant to be a man. And emotionally, it took a lot out of me to regroup and refocus and get my life back in order. So, it takes a lot. It took a lot to learn what it was to even be a man. So for me, it was just getting my emotions under control and being strong for other people other than myself without looking for any benefit from them.
Mm.
absolutely. That was powerful right there, Mr. Robert. Greatly appreciate that. So even with that, fellas, I want to ask y'all this. What are some signs that a man is struggling emotionally that people often miss because he's still functioning? So I'm gonna take a crack at it first. So for me, as a therapist, working with guys who fit this criteria, I see a lot of guys who engage in risky behaviors. A lot of guys start to increase smoking, definitely increase drinking, and increase isolation. Those are some of the main characteristics that I see. When the brothers, they're really not showing the symptoms, but they're still functioning. You know what I mean? So definitely want to just jump in to say that. But let me pass it to Mr. Patrick. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen it when they're not. It's more like the anger that comes out of them. They're quick to anger. They're undisciplined with their emotions, so to speak. Because a man that's undisciplined with his emotions tends to turn to violence. Because that's the peak that a man would do, would be physical violence. So they getting into fights, arguing, swearing extremely a lot, very disrespectful, not honoring things that normal people would honor, whether it be your elders or there's a lady in the room, maybe you shouldn't be swearing so much. You see it when you see lack of discipline. At least that's what I've seen. Because the emotions of a man, it when it turns chaotic, it gets crazy, and then that emotion tends to be pushed and suppressed. And then when it becomes suppressed, it becomes unprocessed. And unprocessed pain produces self-sabotaging behavior. And everything needs to be processed, especially emotions.
Absolutely. No last toes. So yeah, that was, that question was so powerful, man. I'm gonna go ahead on and repeat that. So what are some signs that a man is struggling emotionally that people often miss because he's still functioning? Who we going? Who wants to take a crack at it?
I got it.
Okay.
You got
Go ahead.
all right. All right. So I think some of the signs that are shown when you, when a man is just being starts showing a bit of signs of depression. I had a friend of mine. Unfortunately, he's and friend is more like a brother. He's no longer here right now. And one of the things that he had an issue with, he struggled with depression. And I hope this don't get me bottled up, right? Because it really is something that touches me dearly. Um, he was real prominent, man. He had great opportunities. He was a great, he had great acting skills. He was great with music. He just was a forward thinker. He had so many opportunities, but I didn't realize that he was struggling with some depression, some insecurity, some bit of insecurities with his own self. Because he seemed to me he was always confident, like he always had posture and control. And then certain things started to happen in his life, like the support that he was looking for from other people. I would say his cold market, it wasn't what he wanted. Now he had it from his warm market, meaning the people that was closest to him, but people that was in his cold market, he was looking to expand his business and opportunities. But so unfortunately, things didn't unraveled in a different way, and he just fell into a depressed mode. And I thought, you could just I could just clap my hands, and we can all just clap our hands, and he would snap out of it. But it seemed like he was falling further and further into it, and it led to a point where he just wasn't taking care of himself the way that he needed to. And I remember.
Take your time. Take your time, Dre.
It was one night. He called me about 12:30. I still got the number in my phone. Probably about 12:18 or about 11 something. We talked for about 23 minutes. I got it on my phone. 23 minutes. He told me, he's getting ready to get back in the studio, getting ready to start record again. And he had a session the following day. And me and my wife, we do this prayer call, which we do every Wednesday and every Friday for like the last 4 years. And he's been on it, and he's been opening up. He's been making some significant changes, and I saw some changes in him. But he called me. We on the phone. He's excited about this, getting ready to make these new changes in the life. I saw his last post. I'm like, good, man. I told him, man, brother, I'm so proud of you, seeing how you're making some changes in your life. I see you getting better. You're ready. Look like you locked in and focused, man. He said, I love you, man. I'm gonna see you in the morning. See you in the morning. And some told me you'll stay on the phone with him a little bit longer, but I was a little bit tired. I want to get upstairs to my wife. It's after 12. But upstairs to my wife. It's our time. I wish I stayed on the phone longer. I did. I didn't know that was going to be the last time that we was going to have that conversation. And yeah, man, we woke up, had my prayer call. He wasn't on it. He said he was going to be on. I'm like, dog, you missed it. So I'm on a prayer call, and his brother calls me. He's like, hey, man, such and such passed away. He's frantic. I'm like, what? Right in the middle of the call. I'm like, what do you mean? I just was on the phone with him. Somewhere between that last, when you hanging up and 7 o'clock in the morning, he transitioned. He was only 39 years old, y'all. No kids. He had so much potential, and he was coming out of that dark space. So, I didn't recognize how much of a toll that depression was taking on him. I wish I recognized much sooner, but I was kind of dealing with my own, looking to stay out of my depression, out of my zone. I had just come back, and we'll talk about this part a little bit later. I just came out of being incarcerated. I just came out of picking the pieces up to my life and getting things back in order, and I'm getting pulling my family back up, getting back in alignment. And it really took a toll on me. But man, when he transitioned, man, I would cut his hair and, hey, brother, your hair's, man, you got your beard's all crazy, your hair's low. Bro, I mean, your hair's all wilding out and you're losing your hair, but you're not cutting it. He wasn't in the space that he would. He's normally
Yeah.
more a jolly person. So, I think that for me, um, struggling to see the signs a little bit sooner, recognizing when our friends are calling out, recognize it a little bit sooner before it starts to trickle. I don't know how much more I could have done. I know I did a lot, but I always hold this one. I feel like I could have done more. I feel like I could have done more, and I'll never know. But I know going forward, I won't let the next man down. I won't let my next brother down. I will hold my brother accountable. There's more to be done. We have a short window. So conversation like what we're having right now, and I know it's going to reach the masses. We all need to just make sure that we're huddling up and checking in on our brothers as well.
Can I say something to you, Dre?
Yes, sir.
You've done. I've been in that scenario before as what you've been through. And there's always that thing like, I wish I could have done more. I heard you say you wish you could have done more, or you should have stayed on the phone longer. You did everything that you could at the time with the information that you had. Because I know if you'd have knew exactly what was going down at that point in time, you would have said something. You would have been over there. You wouldn't have left this side until everything's okay, even if it took 6 years. So one of the things that I found that we have is, as men, as that connection, is we have that unseen brotherhood, that unseen way of speaking to one another. And I mean, I remember the first time that I met Dante. I was taking stuff out of my car and stuff. He's like, "Any help?" I was like, "I have no problem asking for help." And that's one of the things as men that we don't do. We don't ask for help. We don't say, "Hey, I need some help with this." We don't say, "Hey, this is what's going on." So when tragedy hits, when something happens hard, we tend to forget that connection that we have as men. Because when Dante asked me for that help, or did I need help, he actually meant it. He actually helped me, And if I'd have never said nothing, I would have never got it. And that's that connection, that manhood, because all of us knows what it's like when the chips are your chips are down, you're back against the wall, and you feel like you have nobody. But when you actually do open up your mouth and say something, then you realize you have everybody.
Yeah.
Big fact. I'm gonna jump in right quick before Mr. Robert go. So to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, Dre. So I had a similar situation like that. One of my brothers. I'm not sure what part of Virginia he was in, but I was calling one of my brothers and one of my homeboys. He wasn't picking up. Normally he'll respond to a text, but he wasn't responding to a text or nothing. So about a week went by. And I called him again. He didn't pick up. Shot him a text. He didn't respond. So I sent him a text. I said, if you don't respond, I'm going to be at your door tomorrow morning, bright and early. Tell your wife I apologize in advance.
Wow.
And sure enough, I was at his house probably about 10 o'clock. I got up early in the morning, got in the car, and just drove up there. And I texted him when I got there, he didn't respond. So I went to the door. I started knocking on the door. Nobody came. Then I started banging on the door like I was the police. So he came to the door like, "Yo, who that banging on my door?" And so when he saw it was me, we just embraced, and he was like, "Man, I'm glad you." He said, "I know this was out of your way, but I'm really glad you came here." We talked about 8 hours.
Wow.
I don't know what would have happened. You know what I'm saying? But I always encourage our brothers to the fellas to reach out to your homeboys. You know what I mean? Reach out, because you don't know, like Patrick. I never met Patrick a day in my life. I just saw my man out there. He had a whole lot of stuff to carry into the place. I say, "You need some help?" He was like, "Yeah, cool." Grabbed it, took it in there, and just helped him out. You know what I mean? So I'm going to pass it to you, Mr. Robert.
Oh, wow.
If you want to jump in on it.
Yeah, thanks everybody for sharing. That was very impactful. For me, it was always a struggle emotionally to see if people were struggling. I never knew how to find out if I was struggling, because I was always afraid to be vulnerable, to reach out to help. And the people that I was around, they didn't really know how to identify if I was struggling either. So it was just me dealing with a lot of stuff for a lot of years. And it just built up to a point where I knew I had to change. And that's when I started looking at, just who I was and what I wanted to be, because I had so much anger in me for a while that I was just ready to hurt anybody that came my way that I didn't like. And I knew that wasn't right. And I was dealing with that emotions, but I was still functioning. I was able to do the things that I had to do, but I was messed up in my head. And then I just started, I just knew that people looked at you, you're black, so you're angry, you're violent, you're just, you're just this. So that was the stereotypes that I had to deal with. And then, I'm a big black guy, so you're not supposed to be vulnerable. So people didn't look at me as being a person that was dealing with anything. So they just looked at me like, oh, he's all right. But I kept dealing with stuff, and it kept festering till it got to a point where I said, you know what? Let me get away from people for a while to let me process things. And then I started focusing on being more intentional about the things I did or didn't do, and becoming very mindful with things. And that helped me focus on other people outside of myself and be able to help other people. Because a lot of times you don't really, you don't look at other people's problems sometimes because you're dealing with too much yourself. I'm trying to pay bills, trying to stay out of trouble, dealing with people on the subway here in New York. It's a lot, and you don't pay attention. But now I tend to pay attention to people and listen to them, because it just takes listening. I think that helps me a lot. Like, that was a big part of the conversation, is just listening. I think when I listen to people and not sit there and try to answer something, like formulate the answer while they're talking, I think that helps. It's just being able to speak with another person and really take time out to grasp what they're going through. And I think that helps me a lot now. It helps other people. A lot of people that I work with, it just takes listening to them, their families and their children, just to be able to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Man, no lies told right there, Mr. Frobber. No lies told. So, all right, fellas, man, I'm gonna ask y'all another question, and I'm gonna give my answer first. All right. So the next question is, how important is healthy brotherhood in a man's healing journey, and what happens when men try to heal alone? So, to me, since I came up playing sports, I've always had like a wolf pack with me. You know what I mean? From middle school to high school, even to college when I moved. Well, my senior year, we moved off campus. Even from when I played ball overseas, I always had some form of wolf pack. So the brother, to me, even though I had an older brother, we was like 2 years apart, but I always still had, that brotherhood there. You know what I mean? But for the second part, the question is, and what happens when men try to heal alone? That's a struggle. That's a struggle. So for me, I look at that as, once I got married, and had my first child, I really wasn't hanging with the guys like talking about. So, you're talking about somebody who's been with that wolf pack for their whole life, pretty much. And all of a sudden, you're married and then you have a child. And it's like, you can't spend all that time that you used to with them, because now you got responsibilities. And it got rough. Fellas, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Personally, it got rough. A lot of late nights, a lot of arguments, because, even though I had these new responsibilities, a part of me still just wanted to go hang out. Even, and I'm not even talking about like, going to the club or just hang with the women. It's just that brotherhood, that camaraderie, that came along with, playing sports and stuff like that. So that's something that I really struggled with. And I really wanted that alone for a while. You know what I mean? Until I was able to get a good grasp. One of the things that helped me out was I was able to get some good mentorship from some good elders. You know what I mean? They had to sit me down and let me know that this is a part of manhood. Like, you'll be able to get back with your wolf pack later, But right now, you got to focus on your main responsibilities, which is, your wife and your daughter. So with that, I'm going to pass it on. Well, I'm going to repeat the question again, then I'm going to pass it on. And the question is, how important is healthy brotherhood in a man's healing journey? And what happens when men try to heal alone?
That's a good one.
Gotta think about that one, right, fellas?
Well, I could definitely go on that one. I ain't gonna hold you. For me, I think it's incredibly important that you have healthy brotherhood, and for a man to truly heal, especially if you got responsible men in your life. One of the things that helped me is a period in my life not too long ago, man. I found myself, I was drinking and driving, and I got myself in some trouble, and it forced me to start really looking at my life. Like, why am I finding myself in this scenario again? Why am I knocking on this door again? I thought we were over this. How did I allow my emotions to put me in this situation? What is the company that I'm keeping around me that's okay in this? Is it them or is it me? And I really had to look in the mirror. I had to say, yo, it's me. Not wanting to, I guess, grow up, right? And just feeling like I could do whatever I want, whenever I want, how I want, right? That's kind of how I rolled until I ran into that brick wall and found out you can't do what you want to do, right? And one of the, Dante, I met you on my journey of transition. I started learning how to, invest and trade in the financial markets, and it wasn't so much about you. One thing I know you can agree with, because you were very skilled at trading. Don't let this man fool you. He is a sniper in the markets. He definitely was far ahead of me in that area. One thing trading did was it allowed me to see who I was. And you think you know yourself, right? But you start trading and you find out all kinds of emotional things about yourself. How you are undisciplined. You find out how you don't follow through on what you say you're going to follow through. And I got involved in a community, wealth-minded, I would say wealth-minded, personal and professional development individuals. And I started just looking at people looking at them as this is what I want in my life. I want that stability. I want that professionalism. I want my children to be proud of who I am, not just of what I've done. Yes, I served in the military and I did some great things. I traveled. I was a part of three deployments on, in war environments. And I've achieved some goals that I've exceeded. I became an IT professional. I worked in the highest forms of government, all the way up into the Pentagon, doing cybersecurity, and I've done all of these. These are things that I've done, but what I wasn't fixing was a thing that my own personal, I guess, insecurities, and putting myself around people that were more professional minded, putting myself around people who placed God first, people that really understood that a man and a woman's sanctity in marriage has to be one. This is what it looks like. In the military, it looked different. We kind of did whatever we wanted. It seemed like we did what we wanted to do. The role models were a lot different. But when I got out, I continued on that journey. But when I started learning how to trade, when I started looking and becoming more involved with my church, when I started getting involved in my men's ministry, when I started stop wanting to see my life spiral, when I started seeing my kids duplicate some of the actions that I was taking, that brotherhood showed me that men's ministry. It forced me to take lead in certain areas. It forced me to stand. It forced me to not want to hide anymore. I was more willing to expose. This is who I am. This is what I've done. I didn't want to, right? Expose those things. I didn't want to say, hey, look, you know, I'm a cancer survivor, and I treated life like, no, I'm not. I don't have this cancer thing. I can do all things when I want, how I want, but that's not what God wanted. That's not what God needed. But He let me do some in the direction where I was able to surround myself around. I want to thank my men's ministry, you know, for just accepting me for who I was. They didn't know who I was, but they accepted me, and with no, they didn't accept me. They with no faults. No, they didn't look at me crazy. They didn't judge me. I want to in my wealth community. It helped grow me so I could be on platforms like this and many others where I feel free to express these things, because I know that there's some men out there who are dealing with some of the things I know that I've dealt with, that you guys dealt with, and we can all come together and start to share more, because there's some young men out there who are getting incarcerated, who are finding themselves with with baby mamas, right? Not wives. There's some women out there that are getting hurt because there are men out there that don't know how to take care of a woman or take care of their family, or let alone take care of themselves. So having that brotherhood around me, it really helped me over these last few years to become who it is I need to become, so I can live in my purpose. And I feel like I'm living in a purpose-driven life, right? This is what happened when men, when men try to heal alone, they crash. There's nobody to turn to. There's nobody to lean on. They have to hide their sensitivities. Like a man can't cry. Yes, we do cry. And guess what? The other day I was watching a movie with my wife. It was a movie with Al Pacino. It's called I think it's called Danny Collins. And something in that movie hit me. Somebody was dealing with cancer or something like that, and it hit me. And I'm in the crying. My wife turns and wipe my eyes. I'm like, all right, man, I'm just gonna let it roll, right? But that's fine. I don't mind my wife seeing me cry, but she knows I'm a man. I'm a man's man. And crying or showing my emotions or expressing myself to her in that manner, it doesn't take anything away from who I am or what I am. And I do it in front of my children. My father has cried to me before, and he's a manly man, right? So, you know, I'll give pause there, but it takes a village sometimes to become who it is that you need to become. And I firmly believe if you keep God at the forefront of in the center of your life, you really can't fail. Because even when you're going through, He'll be with you on that journey. Talk to me.
Big facts.
Yeah. You mentioned something about the military. With brotherhood, I believe the brotherhood actually is what holds the military together, because I can remember being in the worst locations in the world, 100-degree weather, but I had the most fun in my entire life because of the group of people that I was with. and coming back from the military, from out of that scenario, when you are by yourself, when you feel like you have nothing, when you're down and low. I had my son, my first son, he passed away stillborn. And that was when I was going through becoming ordained in the church. And I couldn't have got through that by myself. And it was the church, it was the brotherhood, it was the group of people that was going through the classes with me that helped me guide through. Because when I wasn't looking out for myself, they was looking out for me. And that loneliness, when you're trying to go through that healing, it always came in the middle of the night when nobody was there, when you can't sleep, when you can't, it's just you and your thoughts. That's it. And first thing that I would think to do is I would call somebody. I would call a friend or something like that. And this guy, he's a good friend of mine. He's more like family. I would call him and he like, it doesn't even matter if you call me and talk. I can just breathe on the other side of the line, but I'm here. And it was key to my healing, because us as humans, we wasn't born on this earth. We're not designed to be by ourselves. We're not designed to be alone. We're not designed to be solitary or whatever. But so to heal mentally, to heal even if there's nothing being said or whatever, as long as you're there with somebody or whatever, that helps out. It reminds me of the story in the Army, they say there's this private and he's dug himself in this pit and he's like, I'm stuck in here, I can't get out. And then his first sergeant comes by and says, hey, you stuck in there? He's like, yeah, I'm stuck, I can't get out. And then he's like, all right, just keep digging, you'll be able to get out. And the first sergeant walks away. The commander comes by and says, oh, you're stuck in there? He's like, yeah, I'm stuck and I can't get out. I'm digging and I can't find a way out. And the commander says, oh, just ask your supervisor how to get out. And he walks away. And then another A1C, another lower ranking individual comes by and says, hey, you stuck in the pit? He's like, yeah, they told me I got to keep digging to get out, and I got to talk to my supervisor, all this type of stuff, call these programs. He's like, look, let me hold on a second. And then the guy jumps in the pit with him. And it's like, I've been here before. Let me help you get out. And then that way they figured out how to get out because they were together. It was that brotherhood that helped them get out together. And that's what I feel that brotherhood, whenever it's with me, jump in the pit with me. Don't just tell me where to go. Don't just tell me what to do. I know all this stuff like that. But sometimes it takes somebody to remind you who you are as a person, all the things that you conquered, all the things that you've done, that manhood, that sense of humanity needs to be there to help you get out. And that's what I see as the brotherhood. It's like that pureness of what a human is supposed to be to another person.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Pretty powerful.
Wow. I think that's what it is for me, is always say, I know I can't heal alone. Because every time I try to do things alone, I just get depressed. And then I get this point where I figure out, like, does life matter? And then I knew that wasn't right. I would just always get heavily depressed when I try to deal with problems alone. But then I have friends that are great friends. I have a lot. It's maybe about 6 or 7 good brothers that I can always call, that are always there. And even when I don't know something's going on, they can recognize it. So I know that they are genuine when they reach out to help me. It's not that they're there to say, oh, I did this for you, or I did that for you. It's just they're there, and that matters. And it's got to a point where I'm able to be there for them as well and understand and identify things that they're going through and help them through difficult times. I didn't know that was possible at one point, but now I know that it is, and it's a good thing to have people that you can count on and really care about helping you and making sure that you do good. And I really like it, because I'm tired of being alone, tired of focusing on mental health issues on my own. And it's good to have somebody there to help you through the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Absolutely. So, fellas, we'll go ahead and pivot to the next question right quick. So the next question is, how has faith, we already talked about it now, so how has faith helped your mental health, and where have you seen faith? So I want to be short-winded with this one because I want you all to go heavy on this one, all right? So for me, when it comes to how faith helped my mental health, so faith provided me with principles, morals and principles. And those morals and principles, help guide my life. And not only that, but as I got older, I became friends with other folks who walk by different faiths. And they taught me new morals and principles. And I was able to take those on, just add those to my tool belt to just help me to become a better man. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna keep my answers short because I want you all to I'm gonna pass this on to the fellas.
Can you repeat the question real quick?
Absolutely. How has faith helped your mental health, and where have you seen faith? Yeah, where have you seen faith? I'm sorry. How has faith helped your mental health, and where have you seen faith communities sometimes struggle to address men's emotional pain?
Okay, I can chime in on that. The first thing that pops into my mind when you mention faith is, let's say, faith without works is dead. Mm-hmm. And to me, that meaning meant that you can have faith in something, but if you're not doing something about it, then the faith is pointless. And with my mental health, I learned that if you do not work your mental health, then what you're doing is you're just reading the situation. And then I developed this thing that I always sum up with, and this I said everything is when there's a problem, there's three parts of the problem. There's the problem itself, there's a human emotion that follows after that, and then there's the solution. And then most people, they get the problem part, and then they get stuck in that human emotion things that follow, and they never take that last step into the solution because of whatever reason. It just repeats and goes back into the actual problem. It just constantly makes that big cycle. And so I wrote a book called The Cure for Mental Illness, and the ingredients in that says you have to have awareness, you have to have good perception, you have to have understanding, you have to have support. But lastly, and the most important thing in that whole aspect is you have to take that leap of faith. And it doesn't mean that you have to like have a certain religion that you need or whatever, but you have to take that first step on faith that you're actually going in the right direction, because all that stuff that you learn, all the things that you have, you will not, it means nothing if you don't take that first step. It means nothing if you don't take that leap of faith to get there or whatever. I'm a Christian, and I've been taught. I've studied other religions, stuff like that, and all that type of stuff. But the one that mostly aligns with me and my faith is Christianity. And faith also helped me with dealing with the death of my son, dealing with the war that I was attached to and stuff. Like when I understood the process and how things worked, it helped me be able to organize my mind in a way that I can see things, in a way that I can understand things or whatever. Like, okay, I understand this. Because when my son passed away, and I said that and I came back to church like the following Sunday, and most people said, "What are you doing here?" Like, wow, I'm surprised you're here. And then I was like, "What are you talking about? This church?" And he was like, "Yeah, most people that loses a kid or something like that, they just give up on God. They just give up on faith and everything like that." I'm like, "No," because I understood that the Creator, my Creator, God, has a process for this. This is part of life. This is what it is. When life happens, you don't give up on your principles and what things or whatever, because my hand was already burnt understanding that this is God. You can't tell me this ain't hot. You can't tell me God ain't God. So once that it grounded me. It made me understood that no matter what I went through, this is my true north or whatever. I understood which way to go with that or whatever. So I didn't come to understanding how strong my faith was around other people until at my son's funeral, the pastor was said, "I've never seen a man with so much faith in life." And he said that what song that I wanted to sing at the funeral, and the song was "You Are Good and Your Mercy Endures Forever." And he's like, "Wow!" Like I never knew, because he didn't. It was shocking because that wasn't normal. It was shocking because that wasn't what people will run to the true north. And so that, I would say, faith with me, it kept me going in the right direction. And I've seen the struggle that it has with men when it comes to faith is because men don't say nothing. Like you can schedule an event and you can say, "Hey, we're all going to Cancun, Mexico, and it's $2 for every man. $2. All you got to do is pay $2 3 weeks in advance. Let us know if you want to register a month in advance." You would get nobody saying anything. But the day before that event, you would find $2 coming out of everywhere. You find like 500 men showing up because we don't say nothing. We're not actively going in and stuff like that. And I don't know whether it's fear or whatever, but I noticed that's one of the part of the struggles of getting men to do something, is because we usually don't come out because we have our own struggles that we're dealing with. We feel like I think that we feel like once we get out there that we're going to have to be leaders in that scenario. We can't just put our back, or we forget that once we go out there, then now we got to worry about the stuff that we got dealing back there while we're out here trying to relax and do whatever things we need. It's just a leap of faith that we have to take. It's not necessarily just a religion. If it is your religion and that's what it is, that's great. But it's also, even if you're not religious, you still can take a leap of faith. Take that chance of saying something. Take that chance of asking for help. Take that chance of going somewhere. Because at the end of the day, like I said before, we need everybody. We need each other.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
That's good. That's good.
Pass it on.
I'll let you go, Bob.
I've never had a really bad experience with faith groups. I have a Christian family, but I never really took too much to the preacher in the pulpit, and all that. I just always remained Christian and always remained faithful, but I just I didn't like church in its traditional sense. I didn't like it where, people would go to Reverend said or preacher said. I never liked that. So it always gave me a problem with that. But for mental health, I've always had good pastoral care and counseling in churches where I was able to speak with people that could help me and give me strength. And that was always good. And like I said, I really had a good experience with the church. When I went to certain people for help, it was always good. So I never could say it was bad. And I noticed that the few places that I went, they always looked out for the members because they were smaller congregations. They're not these, 2,000 people in there. It's impossible to know everybody got 2,000 people, but it's a small congregation, seemed to be good. And it always were men that paid attention and looked out for me and always looked out for each other. So I think that was always good. I had a good experience. So, and just being faithful, just knowing that, you don't have to do anything wrong. So that always helped me out along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. For me, I too, I'm a Christian, and but I don't think faith really came into play for me seriously until I really found my back up against the wall, and then that's when I really started seeing, you know, what God was doing in my life. Um, one time when I told you when I was 27 years old, I had got diagnosed with cancer. I already spoke about me having cancer. Fortunately, I was in the military, and it wasn't until a couple years later that I said, you know what, I was fortunate that I went into the military at the time I did. I was 24 years old when I joined the military, and this is where once I start to understand like who God is in my adult life and why is it even important to develop the relationship with him and to strengthen my faith when I found myself in the darkest moments of my life or just a dark moment in my life or at a crossroads in life. At 24 years old, I decided to go to the military because one, I already told you guys, I had a child and I needed to not do a couple of things that I was doing at that time. I'm young city, Bronx and New York resident. And I don't think I was doing all the right things. I was doing some of the right things, but I definitely wasn't doing anything that was going to bring the stability that I needed for my life. So I decided to go to the military at 24. At 27, I get diagnosed with cancer. Mind you, the problem that I was dealing with, that I didn't even know that I was dealing with, that caused me to go to the doctor and get checked out. Hey, look, these instances are happening one too many times. I don't know what it is. I was having those issues when I was like 20 years old and 19 years old. I just wasn't saying anything about it. I'm not going to go into exactly what it was, but I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't know I was having these problems or I didn't know that the problem was much deeper than what I was going through. And here's where faith comes in a little bit later. Had I not gone in, if I would have listened to all my friends, if I would have told all my friends, hey, my big bright idea, my big bright next goal is I'm gonna go to the military. We don't do that where I'm at. That's not what we really do. We get it how we get it. We get it up. We get it. We can go beat our feet and go get a regular job, and then we can go do the other thing to make some money.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped. I didn't tell all my friends what I was getting ready to do. I didn't even know I was getting ready to do it. But I'm glad I did because we probably wouldn't have this conversation right now. I don't look like what probably I've been through, even if you see me in real life and when I talk and move. But that's one of the signs that show me, man, I'm glad God was involved in my life. I'm glad that when I was driving and while impaired, I didn't kill or hurt anybody or hurt myself. I walked unscathed. There was so many countless stories that I've had in my life. near brush situate scenarios where I could have gotten killed or killed in in real time in other areas, but something prevented that from happening. And as when I got in my when I got in my quiet space, not dark space, but when I got in my quiet space, when I was by myself, all alone, it was just me and that book, me and my conversations with God, me and no other interferences, no phone calls, no nothing, just silence, just quietness. I was able to reflect on the things that mattered. Like, oh God, you was really right there. Like you you really stopped that situation from happening. You you provided a beautiful woman in my life. I'm married 25 years now. And I'm not going to say it was all peachy because it was a lot of it was my immaturity that was disturbing the flow of our marriage and our relationship. But you gave me a woman that helped complete me, that walked me through all of those things that I cherish my wife. I honor my wife more today than I ever have because she has shown me faith was developed. It wasn't a given. I had to develop it, and the only way I could develop it was going through the real time turmoils. Um, and so now I understand truly. I don't just display my faith when I'm going through problems, but I announce it even when I'm in my joyous moments. I enjoy. I know that God is walking with me, whether I'm in a good spirit when my money is low or my money is up, or things aren't moving the way I would like in my life, because I know what it was like when I did not acknowledge Him. I know that I just talked to this one about with my wife the other day. This last week, I said, "Man, we was dwelling on where we had been in life." I said, "Man, we really been through." And I remember it was 1 year. My wife, she's always going to church, and she's dedicated. She's the one, right? 1 year, she likes to go to church on New Year's Eve. Back then, that wasn't my thing. I'm going to the club. we going to the bar. I'm hanging out with the fellas. I'm going with the bros. And this is while I'm married. This is well in our marriage, right? This probably maybe 10 years in, 12 years in. I'm not, hey, listen, we New Year's, we either going out. I ain't going to no church. No, I ain't doing that. But I'm gonna tell you what, man, that was the worst year ever. That was the worst year. And when I think about that year, fellas, it started in New Year's because I decided not to go with my wife, and she really wanted me to go.
Mm.
But not too long after that, I found myself in turmoil. I found myself getting ready to lose my career. I found myself just having to just refine and dedicate myself. I just found myself lost. And I noticed it happened again. Another time when I said, I'm not going on New Year's. And it's not about the church. It's not about the church at all. It's about putting my family first. It's about learning how to put God first. It was learning how to put my priorities first. And I wasn't doing that. I was taking care of me. And I didn't understand that then,
Yeah.
I didn't understand that then. But I think with regard to anything that has to do with faith, if it wasn't for him, it wasn't for me bumping my head, I could be under the jail right now. I could be right there right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I was given so many chances. And I feel like at this stage, I don't have time. You realize it, you're getting a little bit older, and those foolish things that you're doing, you look like a fool when other people that are your peers are excelling and doing well. And you're looking like, well, why am I stuck? And you go back and look because you was being the fool. You was very intelligent. You had everything laid out for you. The road was paved in gold. but you was being selfish. You wasn't fulfilling your obligation. You got a real solid woman here. You got a really good family. None of my children are in jail. None of my children are, they have their things that they're dealing with, but for the most part, nah, it's not that bad. It's really not that. It's not that bad. You got, you got a mother, a father. You got love. So what are you doing? Proving that you got to be like everybody else. Be you. And I think a lot of men aren't being themselves. They're being what they need to be. What they feel is that they need to be perceived as to their peers. Just be who you need to be. And that's how I feel about it, man. But I think I had a really good journey. Thank God that I was able to walk through. So
facts. It's powerful right there, man. That's powerful. So fellas, let's progress to the next question. All right. And the next question is, why do so many men struggle to communicate emotionally in relationships, even when they love their partner deeply? And again, fellas, this we can attack this. Look, we can spend a whole hour on this one alone. All right. So for me, I'm gonna answer this question first. I'm gonna keep my answers short because I know we gotta get to some other questions. But I'm gonna answer this based on the clients that I see. Over 95% of my clients are men, and so not saying they have perfect relationships, but this is some of the things that they tell me. Sometimes they say they feel like they're walking on eggshells and when communicating with their partner, because if they told the truth, they would hurt their partner's feelings. So they would rather take the backlash, even though they don't want to. They will take the backlash because they don't want to hurt their partner's feelings with the truth. Because they feel like, well, I'm not gonna say that they feel like, because they said in the past when they have told the truth, it just turned into a lot of arguments. Number one. Number two, another theme that comes up, when I'm working with the guys, is confidentiality. One of the things I often hear from the guys is they're like, Mr. Kendall, why my wife keep telling all our business? I tell her something in confident, and she go tell her friends. And then they also say that sometimes they will, express themselves emotionally to their partner, but then it's thrown at them during arguments. So I want to land my plane right there, fellas. So like I said, I know we can all, we can try not to be long-winded with this one, fellas. I'm gonna pass it on to the rest of the panel.
I can go. One of the things that when I got married, one of the things I learned very quickly is that men and women, they communicate differently. We as men, when we get around each other, we'll talk crap about each other, we'll put each other down, but that's just the way we talk, and it's all with love. And then when women get together, they're, oh, you look great, you look this, you look that, or whatever. It's a completely different way of talking. And when I was married, when I got married, I came up with this concept. I was like, we have to be like the United Nations. I'm from Earth or whatever, or I'm from Mars, and then my wife is from Venus. They got a completely different language, completely different way of speaking. We need to come together in a council where we can actually communicate right, and we can understand exactly what each other is saying to, because it was exactly how you said, Dante, is that we don't want to say certain things to our wives or to our significant others because we're afraid that we speak direct and exactly what we're talking about. I don't like that shirt. You look fat, in that shirt. As a man, if you tell me you don't like this shirt, I look fat in the shirt, I'm like, oh, this shirt, let me get a different shirt or whatever, because I don't want to look fat. You're not calling me fat. But then when a woman hears that in a relationship, like, oh, he's calling me fat, and like, wow, you didn't have to say I was fat. You didn't have to be direct like that. It was your tone, all that. Like, wait a minute, what? I just, what about the information? At least was the information right? Like, no, you could have said it. Like, geez, like just change the shirt. But you learn that it's different when the way that somebody else hears exactly what you're saying, because in your mind and everything, you're saying it right into your head. You got your intentions right and everything. But all that is great, but it also matters how somebody else catches the ball. So if I'm throwing the ball of communication to you, and then you catch it, and let's say you catch it in your stomach, you catch it over your side, or whichever, however you catch it, whatever, then you start to say, oh, did I throw it right? But you also have to remember, did you catch it right? That means that two people think differently or whatever. You can throw the ball perfect the way you think it's supposed to go, but just because you threw it perfect doesn't mean the other person caught it the way it's supposed to be caught. And that's where you have to have that mutual understanding, that sense of humility in the way that you speak, because you're like, oh, maybe I spoke wrong, or maybe I said it, and let me rephrase it or whatever. And the same thing when you hear it or whatever, like, hey, maybe I didn't hear it right. Can you, because it sounded like you were saying XYZ, not this or whatever. And it just, you have to be humble with that. And what we do as men, we tend to try to protect the ones that we love, because it's in our nature to protect that. So when it comes to our significant other, we try to protect them, because if we say certain things, we know that it can be pretty brutal, whatever. And also the other aspect is that we're afraid that it'll be used against us. You know, and we're afraid that it'll be brought up later in a different discussion that has nothing to do about it, whatever. And then that comes with this little sense of brokenness within between the argument of the discipline of the discipline of how we have to communicate with each other, that confidentiality. Because as men, we don't usually have too many people we can trust with our deepest, darkest secrets or whatever. And usually you have that with your significant other. Even then, we're still doing it with kids' gloves, because we don't fully know, because we're not taught to open up. We're not taught to say everything that you need to say. So when it comes into a marriage or into a connection like that, you have to have the meeting of counsel. You have to have that UN nation that comes together. And once a week, we're going to have a family meeting so we can communicate this way. You set it up. Hey, this might hurt you, but that shirt makes you look fat. I'm not trying to hurt you, but you want to change the shirt. And then I understand that, hey, I understood you did your best. Hurt my feelings though, but I'm gonna change the shirt. You know, that sense right there. That's what I call a healthy emotional balance within the marriage or whatever. If you can do that, your marriage and your communication goes a long way, because the basis of most relationships, us as humans, is communication. And remember, 85% communication is nonverbal. So about what you do with your tone, with the way that you look or whatever, with your body language, with your nonchalantness and stuff. And then you also got to remember what you're going through. If you're having a stressful day, how does this shirt look? Like, I don't know, it looks like crap. Put a different one on. You know, you got to remember that there's these other factors that's affecting your communication come across the other one. But that's when you have to have that love of understanding for one another, giving each other grace, to give each other humility between each other, to basically connect that gap, that bridge that gap too. Because it's different too when you talk from your spouse to your children. Like, you can't tell your kids each. Say you got 3 kids, you can't speak to them all the same way, because all of them got different brains. All of them got different ways to understand it. This one may be more sensitive than the other one. This one may just need to be direct. This one may need to be explained to them a lot. But that doesn't mean that this person is less intelligent, or this person is unemotional. This person is that. It's just that us as humans, we have so many different ways of understanding and so many different ways of communicating. And we're so powerful with that, but we also have to put that under control. We have to discipline our way of listening, discipline our way of understanding, discipline our way of receiving the message, as well as giving the message. And a lot of people that I find in relationships, they forget that it's the way you receive the message too. How are you taking it? Are you taking it to heart as somebody's trying to hurt you? Or is it triggering a trigger from your background that has nothing to do with your husband or whatever? Or is it something that person actually did say that you just haven't told him about? Like, I'm not going to say nothing to him because he probably don't know that he just made me cry a little bit on the inside. And then after a week of him saying that same thing, and then now it's blown up into a huge argument, when you could have just told him on Monday, like, hey, when you said that, don't say that or whatever, because that makes me, cry a little bit inside. And guarantee you he'll give you a hug and kiss and say, I'm sorry, babe. But you got to have that humility, and you got to have that grace. And what I've always heard from my elders growing up is closed mouths don't get fed. Say something.
I agree. That right there. Yep.
If it's not working right, say something.
That right there. That right there. Not bad. Not bad. I don't know, Bob, you look like you go ahead.
For me, I gotta say, I always struggle to communicate in relationships because sometimes some of the women I attract are different than me in backgrounds, and sometimes we just don't. We care about each other and we may love each other, but we're just so different once we really get to it, and that's the problem. It's hard to communicate with people, and you're so different. Sometimes I meet women that are really powerful, do great things, and I do my simple thing, and we don't communicate the way we ought to. And then sometimes I meet women that are different from me, and they don't communicate with me the same way. So I know I just always had a problem of attracting the right person. So the communication always sucks. It lasts maybe 18 months or so. Then after that, it says, boom, it's over. And so I just have to focus on really, I don't want to say somebody I'm compatible with because it doesn't make sense, but just getting that right person, and it just works, you know? And that's what I'm looking for. Once it works, then I just know I'm good, you know, because I don't like to have anyone stressed out dealing with me, and I don't want to be stressed out dealing with anybody. That part of my life is over. I just want to move forward and do the right things, but it's hard. For me, communicating is hard, and sometimes I just say things wrong. They just come out so wrong, and then, like you said, they throw it back at you. And I said it, so I got to live with it. But you know, now I've learned, you know, just don't say things. And when I don't say things, that's the bad part about communicating. I just hold it in, which we talked about earlier. Just keep trying to heal on your own, holding stuff in. And when I do that, the relationship goes nowhere again. So I just, you know, I have to learn to communicate better. That's one of my biggest. So I know I got to work on that.
Yeah.
Powerful.
You know, no, gentlemen, I believe that I think most men, when they enter into a relationship with their significant other, a lot of them come in there with baggage. They come in there damaged, and sometimes, you know, the significant other does too. You're like, there's a reason why we're not supposed to be, you know, soul tying and, you know, getting involved with so many other relationships, especially intimately. Because a lot of times what we do is when we meet them, we, you know, within a month, we done became sexually connected, and sometimes it goes away. And now we build up we built up this fortress in ourselves. Now I don't feel like I need to communicate this way to her, or I don't need to communicate this way to him. I have community. I'd rather talk to my friends about my problems. I'd rather talk to my mother about this problem, or my father. I'd rather go to somebody else other than to the source of you of who you need to, which is your partner. And this is why we got to be careful of who we get ourselves involved with. You know, when you start, like I say, when you start becoming intimate with with a person, and then you start having children with that person, and you haven't even gone down the road and start to solidify you're going to get married with this person. You didn't, you didn't court them. You didn't ask the questions. You didn't, you had the butterfly effect. When I say the butterfly effect, I mean you felt butterflies when you first got together. It was warm and fuzzy, and you developed some kind of love with each other. But then somewhere along the line, y'all stopped communicating. Something changed, or even if y'all do get married, right? But you came into the relationship broken. Your heart got peeled back. I know I was in a relationship with years ago with this young lady, and I was 17, 18 years old, and I thought I was in love, right? We did all the things that young people did, and we became a little distant with one another. She started dating one of my friends, my guy. And then, man, the way I felt, I didn't expect me to feel that way. I felt like everybody needs to get this. feel this. I'm not falling in love with nobody. I'm just wham, bam, thank you, man. Baggage developed. Emotional intelligence not ready. That's why you gotta be careful where you lay your piece, fellas. Right? And it led down a road where I just felt like I was treating women however I wanted to treat them. Right? It was about me. If I give too much of my feelings and my emotions, then she's gonna take advantage of me. She's gonna sleep with my friend. She's going that's that, and I see them. And that part hurt.
Do you
But
think? I'm sorry, Dre. Do you think that you felt safe with your emotions being around women like that?
at that time I did. At that time I did feel safe when I was in that relationship. But then when it went a different way and I felt like my confidence wasn't the same, that swagger. No, it wasn't the same. It changed.
Mhm.
Um, I had to grow. I wasn't prepared for that type of relationship. You think what you're ready for until you go through and you realize you're not. But I had to be forged in fire. Like a
Gotcha.
lot of men, we got to be forged through fire. Excuse me, not in fire, but forged through fire. So as I was growing and learning, and those real responsibilities came up, then things change. But when I got into a real relationship, like the one I have with my wife, it did get better. But somewhere along the line, you get comfortable with a person too. You get comfortable in that relationship, and y'all stop talking like y'all used to. You start taking one another for granted. Maybe it's you, maybe it's her. It doesn't. It really doesn't matter. All I know is that if you don't find a way to get back to what it was that drew you to her and her to you, the love letters y'all probably used to write with one another, the walks, just to go on, just to take a walk down the street. If you don't go ice skating or create new memories, then that relationship eventually is going to dwindle. So, I would say, another thing is, again, making sure that you're around, making sure you're getting uh, the assistance that you need so that
Mhm.
you can come out of that shell. Today, I'm happy because we have this wonderful thing called technology in front of us. We got YouTube, we got social media, we got people talking about relationships more. We're finding people that look like us, right? Whether you're, I don't know, the race of the audience, right? Whether it's black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, whatever your background is, you can go on a YouTube channel and put in relationship. And you can start finding people relationship goals, or I'm dealing with such and such and such. You have Chat GPT. If you don't feel comfortable with confiding in somebody, how you start need to change how the books that you read, which you surround yourself around, what you listen to, that algorithm inside of your mind is going to switch the channel to wherever that algorithm is. So if you're listening to foolishness, if the music that you're listening to is saying treat your woman in a disrespectful way, do you
Mhm.
make money, nothing else matters. The music that is played, have sex and with no strings attached. Everybody should just have a free fall. Uh,
Mhm.
Listening things like that, it takes you away from who God's really created you for and to be in your purpose. We get led astray, so our emotions are in line with this. So coming into a relationship broken, you need to really you need to vet the relationship that you have with another person. Just like when we get together as men, we need to vet that relationship out a little bit better. Like
Mhm.
you can't just be my friend. You like I got people I call bro, and I got guys I call brother. There's a difference.
Mhm. Mhm.
Everybody can be bro. That's my guy. That's my guy.
Sir,
That's
yes, sir.
everybody's the king. But it takes a certain kind of you got to develop and grow into a brother of mine. Now you my brother in Christ. You my brother because we are brothers and sisters.
But I got
The
a
sword,
question
the
for
sword. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I
No,
got
go
I got
ahead.
My question was for Robert about coming out of being incarcerated. Like, how did that affect your relationship and mental health coming out of an incarcerated situation, though? Because I know, because you were talking about backgrounds and stuff and how you bringing that into a relationship. The same thing, because I know you was incarcerated before, so I was wondering how that affected.
I think it changes because for me, you lose a lot of emotions for people and things that go on in the community when you're in prison, because everything is stripped of you. You lose your name, your identity, you lose everything. They give you a uniform, they give you a number, almost like the military. You become Private X. You get some BDUs, you get some boots, and you do what they tell you. Prison is the same way, and you get stripped of everything. You're no longer a father, you're no longer a neighbor, a worker, a friend, you're nothing. And you build up a new identity with the men you're with, and those become like your family. They become your brothers because you're with them for a long amount of time. So those are the people you become closest to. And then when you return to the community, people just have a hard time understanding some of the things you went through, and you have a hard time explaining it to them. Like a lot of things I don't even try to explain to my family. I just tell them, it was a time of my life. This is what happened. But to explain it is beyond words sometimes, and the pain that you feel. And then it's always just trying to make sure you do the right thing once you come back. And that's always hard for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that got out and they're back. They stay out 6 months, they stay out a year, they're back. Because it's hard to cope with being out here and putting up with, like you say, working, paying bills, taking care of your kids, and the expectations that society has on us, to be strong, to be a provider, not be vulnerable. Those things really tear people down because they're not mentally strong enough to be out here, because prison doesn't make you strong enough to come back out here. It tears you down all the way up to the day you're released. And you need to do some strong self-building to come out of there a strong man and make it in this community. You're just not going to walk out of there.
Does it make you think different about yourself being a man, like in the long term of like who you are as a man?
No, I don't think so. I think some of the things, it makes you a little harder because you want to survive. And you don't want to take anything for granted. You're always on guard. You're always ready to defend your little space. So it makes you a stronger man like that. And it makes you resilient. It's good to have visits from your family. It's good to have visits from your friends. So you still stay in contact with the community, but you just need to really find out who you are as an individual to do good, because you could be in prison and do all the things that are out here in the community. You could do drugs. You could do anything you want to do. You could drink liquor. Everything that's out here you could do inside. You have to make that choice to say, hey, I want to go to some prisons off of college. You got to go do that. Some prisons offer therapy. You got to go do that. But if you want to stay the same old person that went in, you could do that there too. So it's really the individual has to go in and make that conscious decision to change his or her life. That's it. If you don't, you're going to really mess up.
Well, I heard of you heard PTSD, but I've heard of what post incarceration syndrome. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I think it's more. I think for most people, you get what they call like survivor's guilt. When you get released, and there's people that's still there doing, unfortunately, 30 years or 50 years, and you come back to community. These are people that are actually probably potentially good people, but they're stuck. They're stuck in the system because they were overcharged or just victim of the trial penalty. That's one of the things I advocate a lot against now, is called the trial penalty, where a person commits a crime and they're offered a plea of, let's say, 3 years. They refuse to plea and they go to trial, and then the judge gives them the maximum sentence, sometimes 25, 30 years. Nothing changed from when they were offering them 3 years a week before the trial started, and a week after the trial ended, they give them, 30. What changed? Nothing changed. The evidence is the same. It's just that the person exercised their right to go to trial. So they're punished. And that's why they call it the trial penalty or trial tax. And that's one of the worst things that goes on in our system. So it's really, really bad. And that's one of the things that people deal with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I would say for myself, This is a question. How does racial impact? I believe how it impacted myself. It really forced me to just grow up, and you do have to have a sense of defense about you. It definitely required a certain kind of posture. I remember the day where I had to turn myself in, and I took my wife drove me to the place with my kids, and I listen. This is what Daddy has to do, you know. And the hardest thing was I could explain to them what was going on because they still was a little young. Some of them was old enough to understand, but they all went with great support. And I remember thinking when I get through that door and they close that door, my my mind has to switch. My mind has to switch towards safe being making sure I'm safe. I don't got time to tear up. I don't got time to cry. I remember feeling so overwhelmed with emotion to know that for a while I'm not going to see my children. I'm not going to see my family. I'm not going to have my freedom. I'm not going to taste that good food. I'm not going to be able to make love to my wife.
Well, how did it affect you when you got out though? Because I know about the switch that you're speaking about. Because when you deploy, you switch, but when you come back though,
I was in game mode, brother. When I got out, I was in game mode. See, what I did was, I didn't have anything. I didn't have. I took care of all my bills, all my expenses. I didn't have to really want for anything. I didn't have to beg or borrow anybody for anything. If anything, I was a giver. I had plenty of books. Matter of fact, I'm looking at some of the books that I had when I was in there. Man, I got Millionaire Real Estate Investor, The 48 Laws of Power. A lot of these books, Tony Robbins, Money, Master, and Game. I had books like that in my room. And these are the things, Think and Grow Rich. Of course, my Bible. I got my Kevin Hart book. I can't make this up. There's certain books that I had. It took me to a different place. I thought about it. I said, man, brother, I had access to the Wall Street Journal. I remember sitting on a chair with my legs crossed, propping up my thing. I didn't really have any problems. I wasn't in everybody's business. I wasn't at the gambling tables. I said I knew not to do those things. I was smart enough to know don't put yourself around anything that would have you come back here. Don't put yourself in a position where you're gonna get more time. If I'm playing spades, I'm playing spades with somebody I know that I'm comfortable with. I go in my room. I got my chess. I got my chess game or my checkers game. I'm not out with everybody. I'm cool with everybody. I'm not getting wrapped up in the TV. Rob, you got that one TV in the day room. There's only certain people that control that remote. Now I could either put myself in a position where I'm the one that's going to hold that remote. I'm the one that's going to control that that phone, and that phone time is crazy. Y'all don't. That phone time is crazy.
Right? Now, when you were in there, I'm sorry, I'm trying to formulate the question because when you're in there, because one of the things I remember that Tupac Shakur said when he was in prison, he was getting a bunch of people saying, "Oh, when he goes to jail, he's gonna come out. He's about to have all these albums. He's gonna be writing like crazy when in there." Mm-hmm. He's like, "But when you're in there, there's no creativity that's sparking in your head or something like that." But what was a good thing that he said it was just depression that he said he had to deal with and he was battling. Is there a good thing being in there that you can say that gave you a perspective or something that you can say that you took once you're out of that situation?
Absolutely. I would say for myself, I had a lot of creativity. See, I prior to me going in, I had started the personal and professional development. So I knew what it was what I wanted to do. I planted some seeds before I went in. My mind was in a different space. So I had ideas. I would write. I did a lot of writing on what my goals were, what I would like to accomplish, the conversations that I would like to have. I started learning how I can be more, emotionally connected to the people that I love. I just had I learned how to have bigger dreams. And I feel like I've accomplished almost everything that I said that I was going to do. Because when you're in there, everybody has a story. Everybody has who they was and what they're going to do when they get out. I knew I'm not going to be that person. I am going to be who I said I was. I'm going to do what I said that I wanted to do. And one of those things was, becoming an advocate for helping people not want to go to prison. Now, or finding myself inside of my men's ministry circle and becoming a part of the youth ministry and as a volunteer and just helping out, just getting in where I fit in. How can I help? How can I help? How can I serve? That was my. How can I be a better server for others so that they don't find themselves down that road? Now, I've had some great accomplishments in my life. I knew I didn't belong in that environment. I knew I didn't belong in that environment. I knew how to handle myself in that environment, but coming out, I just wanted to make sure that I don't find myself in there and make sure that I provide to my children the proper way.
Facts,
was that the same for you, Robert, or is that Dante? I'm sorry. You haven't been incarcerated, have you, Dante?
No, I haven't. I worked with the brothers coming out, in previous jobs. I was a part of they call it a treatment team where I was a part of the step down team for the guys coming out of prison and jail. And so, one of the things that I remember about the guys is sometimes the guys had, great ideas, great aspirations, but reality would hit some of the guys. Most of the guys, when they would apply for jobs and they couldn't get the jobs because they had a ding on their record. And when this happened multiple times, sometimes the guys would go back and revert to what they knew because they were like, Mr. Kendall, since ain't nobody gonna hire me, I might as well do what I was doing in the past. You know what I'm saying? And another thing that I noticed from the guys who's been in jail and prison is that once you go in there, sometimes the guys are not afraid to go back in because they know they've experienced it before. So it's like I just do what I got to do out here because I know what I'm going back. I know what I'm going back into if I have to. You know what I'm saying? Go back to jail. So with that being said, fellas, let me pivot to the next question. So next question, fellas, is what happens to a man mentally when he feels like he's failing at who he thought he was supposed to become? I'm gonna speak to this one briefly, fellas. Remember, we're gonna try to keep it within 2 to 3 minutes. For me, I grew up playing sports, so my thing was I didn't care about nothing but going to the NFL. You know what I mean? I didn't. I did the bare minimum in high school. Keep a 2.0. Don't get in trouble. You know what I mean? When I got to college, I never forget one of my college coaches. He said, for those of you all on scholarship, he said the next 4 to 5 years of life will be the best 4 to 5 years of your life. All you got to do is maintain a 2.0 and don't get in trouble. I said, I can do that. You know what I mean? But I should have been pushing myself, but that's not what I did. So because my goal was, I said, well, I'm not really worried about this. I'm going to the NFL. You know what I mean? So when I got done playing college football, I went overseas. I said, okay, I didn't make it to the league, but I went overseas, played some ball. Okay, I'm one step closer. When I came back home, reality hit. I am not going to the NFL. I am not going to the NFL. So sometimes we call this life after sports or life after football, but most guys slip into a deep depression. Deep depression, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, a lot of risky behavior. Sometimes it looks like a slow motion manic episode. That's what it looks like. And sometimes guys struggle with that. As a former elite athlete, as a therapist who's worked with several guys who played in the NFL, it's the same story. You know what I mean? But just because that happens, that doesn't mean you can't get to the other side of that. So I know my 2 to 3 minutes is up, so I'm gonna pass it to the panel.
Okay, so when you don't, what it feels like when a man doesn't make that thing, I don't know if I can describe it good, but it feels like that they're not good enough. Like you feel like, because us as men, we always feel that we're by ourselves, that nobody understands what we're dealing with, what we're going through, and very few have sympathy or empathy for what happens to us. So then when you're actually pushing for a purpose that you believe that's your purpose or whatever, you feel like you let somebody down. Not just yourself, but everybody else that you ever told. You feel embarrassed. You feel like the world is coming down on you and everybody can't stand who you are. And then it's not kind of hard. It's very hard to try to shift your perspective from I didn't make it over here, so let me shift it over here to get to where I need to be. And when I came back from Afghanistan, and I was with SEAL Team 4, I did all this stuff, and then the military was like, well, get back to work, whatever, call it a day. And I'm like, wait a minute, I did all these crazy things, and I did my best and stuff like that. But the main thing that made me focus was being the best at who I was at that point in time, being present in myself. So when I was a 3-striper, I'm going to be the best 3-stripe person I was going to be, even if I didn't make the 4th stripe. When I was in Afghanistan, I'm going to be the Afghan Navy SEAL, best person guy that I was supposed to be. When I'm back in the States and I'm doing my thing, I was going to be the best, whatever that is supposed to be. Because I knew that if I start dwelling on the fact that I didn't make it, that sense of not feeling that I'm good enough, not feeling that I'm worth it or whatever. And us as men, on top of that, in Black men, we've always been taught, it always hits us in the face saying that you're not good enough, you're not worth it or whatever. Society has been doing that to us for years. Not just men, just even worse if you're African American. So I knew that I didn't want to run down that rabbit hole of that pain, because I knew how it felt. Because that's where suicidal thoughts start seeping in. That's where the depression latches on to you. That's where the anger outburst comes in and stuff, and you just stop understanding everything. It's rough when you don't make it, whatever. But you got to keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What y'all got for us, panel?
I think for me, whenever I felt like I was failing at something, I didn't have a problem of throwing all that away and starting over again. So it was always that type of design thinking that I always had. Like I could focus on something, and if it wasn't getting done the way I thought it was, I could start all over, which is always hard to do, is to just scrap months and months of work or scrap how you're feeling to just start over again. But I always felt that was what I had to do to get everything back in order, because if I keep holding on to something that's bad, nothing's going to happen. So I've learned very early, just throw it away, start over, and not focus on all the little things that are not going the way they ought to, and just fix it. And that worked for me all the time now. So even at work, if I'm working on a project and I might be a month in and I don't like it, I'll just hit delete and it's gone, and I'll start all over, because I don't want to keep working on something that's not going anywhere. So I've just learned to just push through now. I don't sit there and dwell on it anymore.
Yeah, I think for me, what I've seen for most men, they do either one or two things. One, they say, batten down the hatches. They focus on just pushing and moving forward. And some become depressed. Some become secluded. Some of them, they just hide themselves. And I think that's that's a disadvantage, because maybe they don't feel like they have somebody that they can talk to in a proper way about whatever it is that they're going through. When you're dealing with failure, like maybe you're not able to put food on the table like you would like to. They're not living in the environment or the space that's healthy or conducive. They're just getting by in life, or they saw their future in front of them. Lights was bright, but something held them back from whatever that thing was. They forgot their way. Maybe they divulged, or they put themselves so much, or gave themselves so much more to their family, that they forgot who they were. So they get a little bit older, they start looking in the mirror and they say, hey, who is this guy? Who is this person? I'm not who I thought I would be at this phase in life. So I see most men just getting, they just become depressed, and they find themselves drawing away. I think that's the time when you need to draw closer to maybe a different circle of friendships. Maybe you need to draw closer to whatever your purpose is. I find myself changing the habits. Like, I go back to the books that I read. Mm-hmm. When I started reading, reading just took me into a whole different world. When I stopped put down the men's magazines, the Source magazines, those things that really entertain me when it came to like music. I started picking up books that dealt with leadership. I started reading books like from Miles Monroe, people like that. I started listening to more, some TD Jakes. I started and then my algorithm changed. Not just the one that when I turn on my, my social media or my YouTube, anything like that, but the algorithm in my own mind. So I start seeing from a different viewpoint for me. So it helped put me back on track.
That reminds, when you said that, that reminded me of what the in the Bible it said, walk with the wise, become wise, but a companion of fool will suffer harm. And then that sense is that, like I said earlier, you like us as men, we need people to remind us who we are when we go through that type of stuff, because we tend to forget because of all that pain that constantly happens to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fellas,
Yeah.
we're gonna push it to the next question. So the next question is this is something I talk about a lot doing therapy. It said the next question is, what does a midlife crisis actually look like in men beyond stereotypes? So I'm gonna do my best not to stay long on this topic, but I will tell you this. A midlife crisis typically, when you compare men to women, it typically starts about 5 years early. In women, you start to see it around that 35 to 40, 40 to 45-ish range. Okay. And I know what social media talks about when discussing a midlife crisis, how obscene it looks. But when you actually look at the research when talking about a midlife crisis is actually a good thing, because for the most part, what you're doing is you're pretty much taking a look at. I'm 40. I just turned 45. All right. So for me, I will be taking a look at what in the heck did I do between ages of 1 to 44 to make sure I'm in a good position right now, as well as put myself in a better position moving forward. All right. Now, most guys, we hit that depression wall right here, right now. All right. And the reason why we hit that depression wall during this time is because when we look back, it's like, yo, I ain't really did nothing for real. Or I didn't push myself to do better. You know what I'm saying? And then you start going through your Rolodex. It's like, you know what? I had this opportunity when I was 25. I said no. I had this opportunity at 27. I said no. I had this opportunity. Somebody said they could put me down with this job. Somebody said I should go back to school. Somebody said I should get this license. Somebody said I should get this certification. Somebody said I should do this, that, and the third. Spend the next 2-3 years to better myself. And I said, no, I got this. Because sometimes what we do is when we start working young, we're strong. Okay. You don't mind working a full-time job along with a part-time job. But when we start, and you all know because we're all fathers up here, we all know that once you start getting a lady, once you start getting a kid, that full-time job, if you don't, a regular full-time job is just not enough. So what happens? We go get a part-time job. And what happens after that? We probably go get another part-time job. So now family is getting bigger. We're spending more time outside of the house, causes more friction in the house, causes more arguments between you and your lady. And it's a snowball effect. So when we look back, it's like, you know what? I ain't really pushed myself. And so what happens, fellas, is guys will all of a sudden guys will say, you know what? Well, I'm 45. I might as well just keep doing this. And I got 20 more years until disability. Might as well just keep going. But here's the thing. Just because we hit that age, that doesn't mean we can't gain more skill sets. I know men right now that's in the upper 40s and their 50s. They're going back to school. They're going to back. They even going to get HVAC certifications because they realize that, okay, now that I have this wisdom, I'm older. I have wisdom. Now I know if I go get this certification, this is going to increase my income. So guess what? Now in 2 more years, I no longer have to work a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs. All I have to do, I can make that same amount of money with 1 job. So again, fellas, I can stay on this topic forever. I'm gonna land my plane here, and I'm gonna pass it on to you all.
With wisdom comes on the negative aspect of wisdom. Wisdom, it comes, you tend to breed regret if you don't use the wisdom the right way. And that's what I think what a midlife crisis ends up being, because when you become a certain age, like in your 40s, and now that you're wise enough to know that, oh, all I needed was these 3 or 4 or 5 building blocks, and I could have had all this type of stuff when I was younger. Yep. Now, like, and then you get upset, like, wait a minute, why didn't anybody teach me this at 30? No, why didn't nobody say it to me when I was 22? Because when I was 22, they were just like, oh, you got to be able to go to college or whatever. Oh, figure out this, that, whatever. And the way it looks for a man is because one of the main things that we do naturally is we chase a purpose. We try to be purposeful and have a purpose of actually being productive in our lives, whether it was with our family members, with ourselves and stuff like that. And when you don't hit that purpose, that once you know that you could have hit, that's when it hits hard. And that's when you start getting depressed when you're midlife. And you start doing these crazy things like, let me buy a motorcycle so I can feel young again or something like that. Like, you just don't want to let the youth of yourself die, because that's basically what I see what it is, because you're basically grieving what you could have been or what used to be, and you're coming into a new realm of understanding and being, because now you're wiser with less strength and less youth and less time. So that's when it really affects you, if you let it affect you negatively. Or you can do it the positive way. And now that I'm old and wise, let me figure out what I can do with what I'm dealing with, or let me teach, or let me help the youth. Let me tell the young kids how to get there so they can be where they need to be.
Facts.
So they won't be dealing with the crazy stuff that I do.
Facts. What we got, fellas? Bring us home, fellas.
No, to the Bob.
I don't have anything. Okay. The midlife crisis for me was just deciding to stop working for people and work for myself more, become an independent contractor. That was my crisis, to just say, you know what, I'm tired of getting a check every week. Let me make my own money. And that was it. Just stepping out there on faith and making it happen. And so far it's been working out. So, I'm happy. So that was my crisis.
There it is. Short and sweet.
Keep it easy. Yeah, those with regard to midlife crisis, I want to make sure I'm saying that right. With regard to a midlife crisis, I think what it looks like, a man just looking in the mirror and just realizing, what in the world did I do with my time? Before you know it, you 40, 50 years old. I remember when I turned 30, I was depressed at 30. I was horrible on my birthday. I knew the 20s were over, but and I think I might have tried to relive my 30s, my 20s and my 30s. But when I became 40, I still looked down the window of those next 10 years, man, wisdom just kicked in. I'm glad I don't have to. I'm not dealing with any midlife crisis. At least I don't think so at the moment. But what it did look like me, for many of us, seeking to duplicate what we think we lost, but you can't never go back.
Yeah,
you can't never go back to what it was. It'll never be 1990 again. It'll never be 2000 again. It'll never be 2010 again. It'll be 2026. And whatever the next following years will be. So you just got to, just enjoy what you have right now, where you're at. It's never too late. Like you said earlier, Dante, man, you can always go back to school. My grandmother, man, she went back to school when she was in her 60s to get her college degree. So that just showed, what she showed me was, it's never too late. To get your degree in whatever it is. It's never too late to develop new friendships and relationships. It's never too late to find love. Maybe the love that you're seeking is not in the environment where you're at. And then you got to realize, what are you attracting? Who are you? So, when it comes to those midlife crises, I urge you fellas, if you're going through it, get it out of your system, get over it. You start dealing with the now. This is where you are. Some of us, I can't grow the hair that I would like. I'm having a crisis about that one right now. I can't grow my hair. I used to have, deep dish wave editions, 360s spinning, but I can't get it. I will not cut my hair. I won't grow my hair. Know how what it is right now. Hey, Patrick, you understand me?
Oh yeah.
Brothers, y'all know we here now.
Yes,
And
sir. Yes, sir.
this is where we are right now. But you gotta love the fact that you're still here, you're still alive. You got food on the table? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have somebody that loves you, or do you have people that love you? And do you have is opportunity in front of you? There's opportunities. I believe there's opportunity in front of everybody. It's just how you choose to see it,
Mhm.
it in front of you, and capitalize on it, man. Capitalize on it. That's my
There,
spiel.
there it is. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So, fellas, that's going to bring us to the end of our mental health men's conversation tonight. First of all, I just want to thank all of the panelists, for just coming on, sharing your stories, being vulnerable, just being honest to share your experiences. And to the men watching tonight, just understand this, strength is not pretending you're okay when you're not. Strength is having the courage to be honest about where you are and taking the next step towards where you want to be. So, with that being said, fellas, we got a couple more minutes left. We're going to start taking some questions from the chat. So, we're going to see if we can get the questions from the chat to be placed in our.
If you can change one thing about how boys are taught to handle
I guess,
emotion.
can I take this one?
Absolutely.
The if you can change one thing about how boys are taught to handle emotions growing up, what would it be, and how do you think that would affect men's mental health 20 years later? One of the things that I'm doing with my son, he's 8 years old, is I'm looking at the phases and the stages at how he's growing up. So when he was 1 years old to 2 years old, he's in baby stage. And from 2 years old to 6 years old, he's in little kid stage. These different stages. And so as I'm raising him, I'm letting him know, like, hey, during this stage in your life, that you should be focusing on this. Like, it's okay. And then do the whole thing when he's upset with things or when he's upset, I say, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to raise your voice or whatever, but you have to be respectful. Basically, I'm guiding him how to discipline his emotion in the different stages of his life. I know when he's a teenager, it's going to be a different type of conversation than I would have had to him when he was 8 years old. So what I'm doing is understanding the different stages, letting him know that these stages are going to change. And because I found that long as somebody understands something, it's easy for them to grasp onto the concept of what it is and what it is to control your emotions and how to do different things. So I know that when he's 20 years later, he knows all this stuff already. He understands all that. So when it comes up to roadblocks or when life happens, he's like, oh yeah, my dad did tell me this was supposed to happen. My dad did tell me that people say men ain't supposed to cry, but I know you're supposed to cry, so whatever, because you're human. I tell them the whole process or whatever. So it's basically, you basically help your child or little boys or whatever understand the process. Because long as they understand the process, they can be okay with it. If I tell you right now, run across a bit of nails with no shoes on, and it's fire down there, you be like, why the heck am I? Like, I'm not doing that. But if I tell you, if you run across the bit of nails, you won't feel pain because there's so many nails. And then once you get on the other side, you'll have $1 million. You're like, oh, now I understand the process. Now I understand what you're going through. I have no problem running across this.
That's good.
But if you just say, be a man, you're not going to get that. But if you talk to them in the different stages of what it is, then you can get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
At least that's what I found.
Yeah.
Big facts. Big facts.
What is something that men were taught growing up that you believe is emotional damage? Oh, I just wanted to chime in on that one right there. You just said it a few seconds ago. Be a man.
Yeah.
Telling your boy to be a man, he's got to figure out what does that mean. You say be a man, suck it up, hold those tears. Men don't cry. Stop showing your emotions like that. You can't let everybody see what you're going through. We can't do that. As especially as men, you can't tell a boy to do something like that. He don't know what it is to really be a man. He hasn't gone through the stages, the phases to really understand what that is. You tell a 9-year-old to be a man, but he hasn't even had a sexual relationship with a woman. He hasn't paid bills yet. He He hasn't gone through the process of renting his first apartment or buying his first house or buying his car or graduating high school. So there's certain things that when we tell our young men, be this and be that, and he's going to look on TV and see this is what I should. This is macho. This is manly. Me engaging in these relationships or with multiple women. That's what cool looks like. So we got to be careful of what we put in front of our children. Period. Especially men, just period. Whether it's a boy or a girl, you got to be careful what you put in front of them. They're going to emulate you first, and they're going to emulate everybody that's around you. What they see immediately. So, yeah, man. You got this one, Rob?
I don't think it's hard to hold another person accountable. You just gotta be honest with people. Talk to them. If you feel someone's doing something wrong, say it. Speak out. Don't just walk away. A lot of times we see things that are going on in the community, and that's what causes the problem. I think the first question is like, how do you, help young people? When you work in the clinical set, you learn about these adverse childhood experiences. If they see you being bad with, the woman in the house, that's what the kid learns. And next thing you know, the kid's in prison or somewhere doing something they got no business. So you have to say something. Knowing what we know now and what we could teach others, we have to tell them, when you see certain behaviors being repeated in the community, say something so that we can fix it. If not, we got a problem on our hands in our community.
I do. Real quick, I wanted to add on to that. So going around on social media, there was a young boy who got caught up with that shooting out in out in Florida, where they drove from one part of the state to another part of the state to go kill some up and coming rapper. And now you see this young man plastered. He's 20 years old now. He looks like he shouldn't be in the situation he is. Those things could have been avoided. What if somebody would have just pulled that young man to the side and said, boy, you in the wrong company of friends. You had enough time to think about what you were getting ready to do. Now this young fella and the rest of them, they're going to find themselves in prison for the rest of their lives. They're only 20-some years old. It's over. It's no more parties. So yeah, I just had to chime in on that one when you said that one, Rob, man. That was near and dear to me, man. We got to get to our children sooner. So by the time they reach adulthood, manhood, which is typically around 20, 19, when they get into the age group, you got to get to them before that.
Next question, fellas, is what's one thing men need more permission to say out loud? So I just kind of chime in on this briefly. So I wouldn't say need permission. I would just say feel comfortable with speaking your truth without worrying about a backlash. You know what I mean? Or just being able to speak your truth. And you don't have to be overly, because sometimes as guys we can be blunt, when we're talking, but we should be able to get our message. We should be able to convey our message, with some compassion. But the gist of it is just being able to say what we got to say when we have to say it unapologetically. That's what I would say to that.
I was gonna say I love you.
So how do you recommend as another man to support a friend that's just got out of jail or prison? Oh, I can answer that a little bit. I haven't been in prison before, but I learned that a peer support group for that particular scenario usually helps, because I ran a couple of peer support groups in my day, and having somebody else that's been through what you went through and have them be able to tell you that it gets better, it is more healing than almost anything that I can think of or whatever. So I don't know what somebody else can chime in on that one.
I think you said it right, and just be honest with them. A lot of people getting out of prison, they don't really understand what it is out here now. You could be in prison, let's say 5 years, 25 years. When you come home, you have these made up thoughts in your head of all this grandeur, how everything's going to be easy. but it's a lot of work out here. This is not easy. No one's going to give you anything. I might be nice to you for the first, week or two, give you a pair of sneakers, a couple bucks, but after that, you're on your own. And it's hard for a lot of people who have never worked before to come out and get it. So to support them, you just have to be honest and let them know that, stay focused. And when you see them going off on the wrong track, you got to pull them in right away because I mentioned earlier, people go back. Recidivism is real. People do things when they can't work, they can't get a job because that box that checks to say you have a felony background or they say you did a violent crime, you can't get a job. So what do? You revert back to what you know. So be honest with people, and the support is being honest, help them with resources in the community if they exist. And if they don't, just, tell them how to make it on their own. You got to really be supportive because it's hard out here. Even for people that have never been in prison, it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, you said it. That's 110%. I have nothing to add to that. That's exactly correct.
Thanks. Let me see. The last question is, it says, what does healing actually look like for men? Well, I'll tell you a brief story. I told my wife that, once I start my own company, one of the main things I'm going to do with my pay increase is put that money back into me. You know what I mean? So case in point, I told my wife, I said, a couple nights a week, I'm going to hit up the personal chef because I know with the personal chef, I know he uses nothing but the highest quality of food. You know what I'm saying? Like the little things like that. So I'm going to go start buying some more organic food. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to start going outside. I'm going to start, now that my schedule is a little bit better, I don't have to get up and go to work at 8 o'clock. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go work out around 5, 6 in the morning. I'm going to make sure I get about 5,000-10,000 steps in, I make sure I do a little bit more meditation. Told my wife, I said, I'm going to make sure every morning I'm going to read 30 minutes, minimum 30 minutes a day, whether it's a physical book or an audio book. Give myself time for prayer, meditation. Also, speaking, I always tell, even I'm a therapist, but I always tell people sometimes you just might need to talk to one of your homeboys to get some, to get that clarity, to get that healing. Sometimes you might want to talk to a religious leader, all right? But if all else fails, you can always go talk to a therapist. I'm starting to notice that a lot of brothers on their healing journey right now, most of them are adding the therapist aspect to their healing journey. Yes. I'm going to land my plane right there. Anybody else want to chime in? So, anybody else want to chime in on that before we end it?
No, you got it, man.
Okay, cool. So listen, chat, social media world, we greatly appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. I know I had a blast. I know the panel had a blast. And as we exit, just put some comments in the chat. Hey, let us know if y'all want us to do a part 2. All right. If y'all want us to do a part 2, we might come back and do a part 2. So with that being said, love y'all to life. We'll catch y'all on the next one.